And we're going ahead. I believe we're live. So I want to welcome everybody to today's event. This is the Microsoft Teams live event webcast. And my name is Mike Gannotti. I am a technical specialist for Microsoft, focusing on Microsoft Teams and all things 365. I will let my cohorts quickly, audio-wise, give a shout out from each and introduce themselves. So go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sam Brown. I am a technical specialist for the Teams product with Mike, and I cover healthcare customers all over the East Coast.
And good morning or afternoon, everybody. My name is Joe Giarratano. I'm a customer success manager in the health and life sciences field at Microsoft, and I'll be monitoring the chat window today. So make sure to put questions in the chat. I'll be monitoring throughout and publishing.
So today, as always, today's broadcast is brought to you by the Microsoft Healthcare and Life Sciences Division. You can find us always at our blog at aka.ms/HLS-blog. That's aka.ms/HLS-blog. Be sure to visit there. We have some new upcoming webcasts we're going to be scheduling that are very pertinent to things that are happening in today's world. And so we look forward to seeing you there. But before we start, a couple of things. I always feel like I got to put on my radio voice. So today's is brought to you by Logitech Meetup. I actually don't have my Meetup hookup today. It's a Logitech Brio. It's another professional portable camera. That's what I'm using today. But the Meetup is an all-in-one huddle room solution. It's part of the Microsoft Teams Room ecosystem. And you can find that as well as all the other great Logitech components. I use Logitech in all my webcasts and meetings. I even have a Logitech team room set up over there separately. And, go ahead and check them out at logitech.com, but we use it. So before we get started, a couple of housekeeping items. First of all, we're going to change my hat. I got back from vacation.
Mike, you're muted. Sorry about that.
I got muted. Was I muted the whole time?
No, just for the last few minutes. So you talked about you got back from vacation.
Oh, the last few seconds.
Yeah.
All right. So here I am. Who muted me? One of you two. Yeah.
We accidentally clicked mute all on the producer side. Sorry about that.
Okay, so we're back. But before we start, some housekeeping items. Number one, ask questions. I've already seen a couple of them posted. I will be addressing those. One of them I'll be doing. Yes, this is being recorded live, so you'll be able to find it. It says it here in my housekeeping item at aka.ms/HLS-blog. I'll post the recording and resources following today's presentation. All the questions are moderated. So you'll see, and I'll show you the view of that. When you post a question, it actually doesn't show for everybody. That enables you to also ask a preliminary question or get clarification, and our moderators can go back and forth with you through a text chat directly. But if you ask a general question, they can publish that out, and then we'll address that with the whole general section. Also, we want to hear from you. We want to know who you are, where you're joining from. If you want to tell us your state, your town, city, your country. We get people from all over typically joining us. We'd love to hear from you and give you a shout out during the podcast. So go ahead. Last thing is a little bit on how to engage in the Q&A panel, which some of you have already started doing. You will notice in the upper right-hand corner a dialog box with a question mark. If you're not seeing it open, click that. It will open it for you. You can go ahead, post your questions there. We'll see them. We can publish them. And then, we can begin that whole dialogue, or post your shout outs. Let us know who you are or where you're coming from. We'd love to give a shout out to you. Also, down below, you'll see that shows you kind of that view. You can put your name, optional. You don't have to tell us who you are if you want to remain anonymous. And if you are logged in, you can click post as anonymous. It won't know. You can remain, hi, I'm Michael, or hi, I'm the man behind the scenes. You can be like the shadow person, right? So feel free to do so, and we'd love to, like I said, love to hear from you. So with that, let's get on to today's presentation. We got a lot to cover, but we've got an hour and a half scheduled. We probably won't use the whole hour and a half. I see people laughing in the background. Yeah, I see you too. That's in my dialogue, but you'll see how that works a little bit later. But at any rate, what we're going to be covering, first of all, what are Teams live events? I'll be teeing that up, and I'm going to then take you into the Teams live events administration and all the things you need to consider there. Then we're going to go into configuring a Teams live event, and Samantha is going to take over and take charge and walk us through that and producing a team event, how to post an event, and then we're going to have Joe helping with Q&A. And again, Q&A is throughout. So before I jump into the meat, do I have any questions that you want to tee up for me, Sam or Joe?
Yeah, so one of the questions is, why was there no join button inside of my Teams calendar from an attendee?
Great question. So when you set up a Teams live event, you're going to see this in a little bit. It's generally set up and configured to deliver internally, but all you need is a URL, and there is a click here to get the link to provide for attendees who are joining, such as you have. So what we've done is I create a blank meeting invite, a calendar invite that I save as an ICS file standard that you can use in Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, we really don't care. Any standard email entity for calendaring. With that .ics file, I then put in the verbiage, and I take that link and I put that in there, and I make it purple because we're Teams, and we drop that in. So that's why you don't see it like you would see in a standard Teams meeting. If I provided you that, that's generally what you would provide to your internal attendees. Anything else before we start? Any shout outs or anything we should address, or can we move on and tee the rest up later?
There's actually a question.
Yeah, so first of all, we have a couple of shout outs. So Matt S is coming in from Texas, loving Teams. We love that. Randy's in the house from Baltimore, and we also have Charlotte, North Carolina. We have a few more coming in, so we'll definitely pause for some of those along the way.
Yeah, so feel free to cut me off at any time.
Yeah.
Let's do that. And I see lots of questions popping. That's great, or comments. So I'm going to leave that to the team. We're going to go ahead and get started with what are Teams live events. So I have a couple of slides just to quickly talk through. We're not going to spend a whole bunch of time on this. But for those of you who may have been, I'm going to go back a blast from the past. If you're familiar with Skype meeting broadcast, Teams live events is the evolution, the successor, the heir apparent of Skype meeting broadcast. So what it does, if you look at the Teams ecosystem for providing for meetings, we have Teams meetings that are one to one, a few to many, many to many, where it's live interactive screen sharing, live interactive video and audio, all that can take place, but it's facilitated for up to 250 users. That's the typical traditional Teams meeting, and those can be recorded, and we can invite external people and provide this rich meeting interactive space. Teams live events steps in where Teams meetings really leave off, and it allows us to scale so that, when we get to these larger settings where it may be, communications, announcements, and other things, we can facilitate up to 10,000 concurrent attendees. So if you invited all your friends, family, colleagues today, we could all have a happy party and we could be presenting with everybody attending. It's really around this idea of few to many, right? So again, it's a push with interactivity through moderated Q&A. And it's really designed around this idea that we have a host, like right now, Samantha's and Joe are helping with the hosting capacity here, where they can queue up and answer people and write back. But then we have the presenters who are actively presenting, and we can actually free them up from all those other meeting responsibilities. So they simply present and go through their material. As a part of that, it's meant to, do a couple of things. Number one, some of the big areas we see this huge in, right? News and announcements, corporate news, corporate announcements. If you have something that's, live, hot off the press, or very important that you want to push out, you can schedule, and you'll see this from Sam later, right on the fly, you can schedule a live meeting, bam, and push it out, and even start immediately with these Teams live events. So it allows you to do things very quickly and push it out to your organization. Also, employee and customer engagement. So I have an example of a physician at a hospital who is focused on diabetes, and he has a Teams community set up where his external patients are actually a part of that team. But then it's a large contingent of those people. And so what he does is he holds live events where he can then post stuff out, talk about the latest research and news and things they're seeing, and then allow for, again, moderated Q&A. It also allows for consistency in messaging so that you can get stuff out there. You can deliver it once live, and then with the archival capability, redo that. We see it heavy in learning. A lot of folks are using this as they're rolling out Teams, Office 365, Microsoft 365, new apps. It could be your SAP implementation, your Epic implementation, whatever that is, where you can do live training sessions, again, with interactivity for sharing best practices, and again, to be able to scale, right? And then finally, you know, this idea of reaching an audience no matter where they're at, including mobile, like the iPhone. So I had a gentleman, Michael, he's an MVP, and he did it live on air, so I'll mention him. Michael Greth out of Germany one time sent me a picture during a broadcast of watching me on a train on his iPad in Germany. It was awesome, right? Wi-Fi. And so you can have this kind of anywhere, anytime, any device reach for individuals via those. It's important to note there's a couple of things when we talk about, it's all based off of the stream technology that you get with Microsoft 365. And we do have these for a variety of mechanisms or outreach efforts. So, you know, whether you're a CEO wanting to do employee engagement and connect, allow employees to connect with leadership like we do internally, and we can do that. We can do, again, training sessions. It could be corporate communications. And we try to make it this very flexible setup. So today we're going through Microsoft Teams in a very simple setup, but it's important to note because it is based on stream. You can get very complex. Those are other sessions we could do if we wanted to later, showing you how you can use external encoders to provide and push content out to users. But really this idea of being able to push to anybody, anywhere in your organization, and pull in presenters from anywhere as well. Both Sam and Joe are sitting in New York right now off Times Square. I hope they had some good lunch. But me, I'm sitting here in Pennsylvania delivering that session. So the three ways that we deliver these, and then we'll get into the administration. We do have live events native in stream, and here you can see an example where somebody can actually be embedded in a SharePoint web page, for example, in your intranet. You can have Q&A and other things, post that video and allow that kind of high production value stream with external encoders. We also provide for doing that through Yammer for leadership connection. Our CEO, Satya Nadella, once a month has CEO Connect, where he posts and does a live video to the entire org, and it's in Yammer, and people have discussions here in this little screenshot. You can see Dan Holm, who's famous from Office 365, and he's asking what's our latest position on diversity, right? So an executive is presenting, and then they can have moderators go in and reply, as well as other attendees, and start a Q&A. So it's great for engaging employees and also doing things like ideation on the fly, right? And being able to do that enterprise-wide. Finally, what we're doing today, and then we're going to jump into administration, Teams in live events. So this allows us to do a number of things. Number one, we can push out our message to internal and external. If you're watching today, you're probably external, right? You're a Microsoft customer and you're learning about this, and all you need is a browser to be able to watch that. Additionally, you can schedule and deliver these as easily as you do scheduling any Microsoft Teams meeting. It's simple. Sam's going to walk you through that whole setup. Quickly share your screens and webcam. So I'm doing that in a split screen view, little talking head, big screen. You can do that as well, or you can switch to, large talking head. In fact, here we go. So, here's a large screen. You won't even see me, or perhaps even go to, and this is kind of scary. There we go. We can go to that large talking head, and now I'm switching again. And there we go. We'll leave it at this setting moving forward. So you can see how you can, shuffle between the different views and push those out and be able to have kind of that rich experience. And finally, the moderation like you are seeing today. So that's really, in essence, what Teams is. It's large scale events, 10,000 attendees concurrently up to it can handle. That's a soft limit. We'll talk about ways to scale that, etc. But before I move on, questions. So go ahead, unmute yourself, Sam.
Yes, so
Yeah.
Joe has a bunch of questions coming in from the audience and also some shout outs. So I'll turn it over to Joe.
Yeah, thank you, Sam. So Mike, first up, let's see, I'm just scrolling through the window here. Columbia is asking, actually, I just missed it. Columbia is asking,
yeah, I think they're asking, are there any recommendations for URL shorteners?
So internally at Microsoft, we have our own, but it's like anything else. It's a URL shortener is really a redirect, so you can use external. You can set up your own internally if you want. I would recommend, if you're really looking to do that, what you would do is take, we have a service set up internally. Talk to your TAM. They can get you into connection with the folks who do that at Microsoft. If you want to set a similar service for yourself, for your internal distribution, where you can go ahead, register a URL, and it'll give you that shortened one. But then you can brand it, like we have that aka.ms. You could have it aka.columbia, right? / whatever. Next.
Mike, another one from Ralph this time. Ralph is asking, he wants to do a recurring live event. Is that possible with Teams?
It is not. So you would have to schedule those separately. And the reason is this. Each session, it spins up under the hood. It's Azure Media Services. So behind the scenes, we're spinning up all the VM infrastructure, virtual machine infrastructure to support a 10,000 attendee Azure Media Services live stream, which is what this is under the curtain, right? Or behind the curtain or under the covers. That's what it is. So it spins that up, and it does it when you end the event, it spins those down, so we don't have to keep maintaining that and incurring that for delivery. Next, any others?
From Sarah, this one, Mike, is there any plan to scale live events beyond the 10,000 concurrent viewers? Maybe up to 20,000 or something larger for larger orgs?
I don't know what they've said in the roadmap or not, so I'm going to say I'm unaware. I will say that there are people looking at that. I don't know of any immediate plans, to be honest. At this time, the scale is what it is. There's been talk of that. What I would say is, if that's of interest to you, go out to, what do we call that? Oh, shoot, I'm blanking. Where you suggest stuff.
User voice?
Yes, user voice. Microsoft user voice for live events, and suggest that. That would be for stream live events. That's where you do this for that scale. But you might see some others that that have posted similar. You can vote on. I will tell you this: you would be surprised that what we have seen at Microsoft. We're well over 100,000 person organization. And like I said, we do Satya once a month live. We have other ones that are live. We are on the exact same infrastructure as all the attendees here today. So there's no magic sauce. that we're delivering. But what we've seen is that when we're talking about delivering these live events, 10,000, we've never even come close to hitting that. That seems to be the sweet spot, because under that 10,000, you have people, they're working, right? They're doing their daily job. If you're in shifts, if you're in the medical industry, people are home, etc. So they'll go and they'll watch it. Typically, we see most of the viewing actually happening after the fact, on demand. In fact, this recording we're doing right now, we'll see all the attendees at the end, but in fact, we'll get several thousand typically that will watch it on demand. So, you know, that's where we tend to see the sweet spot is in the on demand, but the live provides that, you know, real-time component. One last question, and then we'll take some more in a bit.
One last one is from Jim. He was asking, it says in the MS doc that as far as August anyway, the Teams live events isn't available in China. Is that still the case? Do you know?
Yeah, so this is and it depends where in China. Hong Kong actually goes through their own. The rest of China goes through what we call the Great Firewall. And Microsoft 365 services are provided by a Chinese entity, 21 Vianet, in China. So they host our infrastructure in China. They provide their listed, you know, and supported sets of services that they put out there. So, you know, we're constrained somewhat by that in that case for those. If they have a way, if you're doing something tunneling out where they're bypassing the Great Firewall, great. But otherwise, that is the case.
Great. And Mike, just one last, it's not a question, I just want to give a quick shout out to Ven. Ven is rolling out Teams at the org and just did their first live event test yesterday. So looking forward to learning more today and making the next one the best one.
Zen, you are the bomb. Thank you. So that's cool. So let's go ahead. We're going to jump into the live events administration. We're going to be talking, I'm going to show you the stream admin setup. Then we'll walk through the Teams console, Teams admin console, and where we can affect changes for live event policies. And along the way, we're going to discuss network readiness and ECDN, which is going to be key for many organizations to be successful. Just because I've had orgs go out and run a test and do with a few users and everything looks great, and they say, now let's do an org-wide in there, and it grinds to a halt. We'll talk about how you can avoid that happening and the settings that you can set up along the way. So real quickly, I do have 2 slides, and we're going to jump into the actual application, just so you understand how this all works, right? So first of all, I'm going to tilt because I got a big screen right here. So I'm going to be looking over here. You'll notice that the scheduling takes place, and Sam's going to walk you through all that. There's an organizer that schedules the event. When they do that, the infrastructure kicks up, and then from a Teams live event standpoint, we do it all from Teams. I never have to leave the client. I don't have to set up separate encoders and all this. Any cameras that show up, people remote, it's just Teams, right? It's simple. And that's this top bar here. So the scheduling is set up. We move into Teams, right? Then we go into the actual production where we queue up what's going to show a shared screen, you know, a shared screen, talking head, both in a split screen like we're doing now. And we're going to start the live event. Once it kicks off like we're in now, the producer delivers it. It sends from my Teams client a video and audio stream up to Azure Media Services, where it's picked up, it's transcoded, and then it's delivered through our worldwide content delivery network. Now, what that means for you, and that this is going to come into play with the ECDN part, I'm going to show you in the admin console. What that means is that wherever the local egress point is for your users watching the live video, let's say you're in New Jersey, you're in, I don't know, Jersey City, New Jersey, right? And you go to pull it up, and your egress point to the internet is local from your building, and you have a straight shot to the internet. That means that whatever the closest Microsoft data center is to that point, that's where it's going to stream for you. But if you have a user, let's say I have some pharmaceutical companies that, you know, they're in Jersey, but they have somebody, oh, I don't know, yesterday we were talking about Paris, France. So they have a group of users and researchers in Paris, France, or Prague was the other one. When they go, it's going to look for how are they accessing video on the internet? Where's that egress point? And it's going to pull it for them from that data center. The way that we do that, we have dark fiber connecting all of our data centers worldwide. So when they go to watch it, instead of them having to pull it from the general internet across the Atlantic, for example, what it's going to do is over our back-end dark fiber, that video is going to shoot with optimum connectivity to that local data center, and then it's going to stream for them from that point. So they're going to have a better experience. And then finally, it's all archived in our system, and we'll get more into that. So that's it for what it looks like from a administrative point of view. Last thing, and then we'll jump into the screen. All of this now, we do have a service. I'm going to walk you through all the different screens, the actual administrative console. But if you're interested, I'll have the link in the on-demand piece. If you go to resources.techcommunity.microsoft.com/live-events/assistance, or wait till I post the archive later today, I'll have the link directly there. We do have a new public preview of our live events assistants, where they will walk you through remotely how to set up, configure, and do all those things that you need to do, right? Where you can request assistance. Take advantage of the service. We'd love to have you using it. So that's that. Let me go ahead. I'm going to now exit that, and I'm going to bring up over here, and there I am in my little shark selfie. We're going to bring up the admin console. So we're going to start with here. This is the Microsoft 365 Admin Center. There are two places, not four, two places that you're going to effectively administer from a 365 standpoint this service. Now, that's not to say if you have administrators who are doing things with your firewall and doing traffic shaping and packet prioritization, there's other things you can do there to ensure quality of service, etc. All the kind of things you would do typically for that. But where we're going to go to get started here, we're going to scroll on down. And actually, I said I'd start in Stream. So let's go here first. So we're going to go to Microsoft Stream. So you go to the Stream service at, stream.com. And from here, you'll see the settings. And if I click on that, typically what you'll see is this, My Settings. And it's only your own. But I see, because I am in this demo environment that I'm showing, an administrator of Stream, I see admin settings. So anybody who's a designated admin will see this, and I'll show you where you set that. We're going to go ahead and select that, and it's going to open up the settings for Microsoft Stream. And there's a lot of stuff in there that we could do. So you can see here, I have the designated current administrators of this, and I could add more people or groups. And these people can go and do things that says like set up privacy, ownership, etc. But we can see the administrators added there, and so they're going to see that little admin settings. But what we're concerned with is really two areas here: live events and ECDN solutions. Everything else is really around this whole concept of just Stream in general. That's a whole other video. We're not going to do that today. So we're going to start first with the live event. So I'm going to select that, and it's pretty basic here. A couple of things that we do. First off, under settings, it says when enabled, only the below users will be allowed to create live events. And you'll see mine is off. So what does that mean? That does not mean live events is not enabled. In fact, it means just the opposite. It means it's enabled for everyone. Everyone can schedule a live event. So keep that in mind. A lot of times I've gone and I show this to people and they're like, oh, I thought it meant it was off. No, it's just the opposite. This means it's wide open right now to create live events for anybody in your org if it's been turned on. So from here, if I don't want to, if I want to control who can create a live event, I come in, I enable it, and then notice it says search for people and groups. So I can come in and say, you know, I want, oh, this is the one where I don't have that setting. Let's see, I don't know. Do I have a doctor? Move with a G. I'm not going to go do it. But at any rate, you can search for people, look them up, or again, Office 365 groups, and you can assign them. Then those only will have the ability to create an event and schedule it, right? So that's important. We also do have, I'm going to turn that back off, the ability to see any live event streaming now. So here you can see in my demo environment, we're not doing anything, not much to see here. But if there were a number of events and you can deliver up to 15, 10 and 5, 15 concurrently, right? You could post those here and have that available. Finally, if any are scheduled, and this was one we set up but we really didn't deliver, you can see any upcoming, and the reason why it's showing here still is we never actually activated it. We just walked through the setup. So you can see, you know, again, you can control who can then set up meetings. You can see what's streaming live and upcoming. So before I move into ECDN, any questions here?
Yeah, definitely.
I saw you post great questions, so.
Yeah, we have a ton of different questions. So one of them is Dave from DC. He's asking what happens when the 10K threshold is met? Like, can people just not get in? Do they get a message that there's a full session? What does it look like on the user end?
Yeah, so Dave, that's a great question. It's actually a soft limit. What we have is an SLA, service level agreement, for 10,000. That means when we spin up that effort, right, to deliver it, it's scaled to guaranteed meet for 10,000 attendees. Now, there's all kinds of things that can come into play with that, right, around bandwidth, resources, etc. And so, you know, there may be things around your ECDN that may affect that number, the actual transmission rates, etc. But it's a soft 10,000. It's not hard. So if a 10,001 joins, they're not going to be kicked out. But you could see service degradation for end users post 10,000.
Hey, Mike, next question is from Tim. Tim's asking, is live events live on GCC yet? If not, do we have an ETA?
That is a great question. Can you guys take a note on that? We could post a link in the follow-up. I don't deal with the GCC, so I'm in healthcare and life sciences. Not GCC, so I am not aware. I thought it did, but I could be wrong, so I don't want to misspeak. But we can get clarification on that.
Thank you. Next one from Safra is asking, some live events need multiple cameras. Is there a way to manage that in live events or as a producer?
That is a great question. So so number one, if you're using the external encoders, not a Teams live events, depending on the hardware or software solution you leverage, absolutely. But let's say you're delivering a Microsoft Teams one. I have multiple cameras here. In fact, let's see. So I'm doing, I just turned my camera off. I don't want to do that. Now I got to re-add me. There we go. I'm back. I forgot I was going to switch through some cameras. I have multiple cameras here, but what I would say is this. So the short answer is yes, if you want to do it in Teams. The way typically people do that is some type of external source where they can pre-mix it and then select between them. So for example, I used to do this from the Microsoft Technology Center in Malvern. We had a studio where I had multiple high-def cameras, and it came into a hardware piece where we would mix the different camera views and do all the switching. But then we use a device called a Magwell. That's Magwell, Magewell. And that allows you to input either HDMI into it or high definition SDI, which is typically what a lot of the devices you may already have in your organization if you have like an AV department, etc. But it'll allow you to put in that as the output from your mixing, and then it outputs USB 3.0. So you just plug it into your laptop and it sees it as a webcam. So whatever you're mixing outside shows up as the video view, like right now, my little talking head. You just put that full screen, and you can absolutely do that. Any others before we move?
Yeah, is there a plan to offer, this is Daniel asking, is there a plan to offer external captioning from the production company side? AI captions are good for general conversation, but Daniel points out sometimes with presenter accents or business acronyms, it can sometimes fall short.
Is he talking for the transcription?
Yeah, it sounds that way, yeah.
So we have, restate the question again.
Sure.
So I make sure I'm going to answer it correctly.
Is there a plan to offer external captioning from the production company?
Ah, got it. I know what he's talking about. So we do machine, so he's correct. We do machine learning based translation, right? So it's part of our cognitive services for Azure Media Services that will allow you to do automatic transcription in up to 6 languages simultaneously. So people can, they could click on and view the simplified Chinese or Spanish, etc., through this view. Today, it is machine learning. I am not aware of any plans for external. I will tell you that, I understand, sure, it's machine learning, it's automated, so it's not 100%. It's gotten, I will tell you, it's gotten much, much better, and it continues because it is based on machine learning. The service, if you've watched any of it over the last year, is made leaps and bounds. It continues to learn and get better and improve as we go forward. But at this time, there isn't. If you really have a drop dead need for that, you'd want to look at doing an external solution then going in via Magwell, like I mentioned, and then you could overlay. So for example, when I ran that MTC Studio built into our hardware, we had the ability to do manual external closed captioning. Somebody could be typing and input it in, and then that would show in the screen. So there's ways around it, but what we're doing is purely automated. All right, is there any metal, or I see a bit of heavy metal, and this could be considered heavy metals. I don't know where that came from, but
Ralph was saying that he wants to see you in your metal shop, Mike.
Oh, dude, you got to join me on Instagram, man. I'm getting ready. I'm kicking off. I got a big bar of steel. I kick off a new project starting tomorrow. So check me out. I'll be doing videos there. All right. I'm going to go ahead, table the questions. I'll pause again in just a bit. We're going to move into ECDN. I still haven't touched on the other, but ECDN shows up twice, and it's important to note where that is. So ECDN, as opposed to our worldwide CDN that I mentioned that affects the egress, is that the few, Giphies, etc. I know, I saw that. I just saw that punch up. So at any rate, back to ECDN. What ECDN is this. We can minimize and we can maximize the experience based off of our worldwide content delivery network based on your egress points. That means that those firewalls that they're locally going out to see the internet, right? And my Italian hands are waving. However, what it does not do is adjust and affect the network impact within your organization or on those egress points themselves. And what happens is on the internet, there's no such thing as what we call multicast. There's unicast. What that means in simple layman's terms is everybody that goes to watch it opens a video stream. So if I have a 1080p 1.5 megabits per second stream that's streaming down, and Joe in the back end goes and clicks it, 1.5 megabytes per second or megabits per second is streaming through the firewall. If Sam goes to hit it, now we're at 3 megabytes. It's simple math, right? It multiplies. That can be a lot for some networks. Some folks' networks are not set up to handle that. So what we have is partners who provide what we call an electronic. It's not a physical CDN. There's no infrastructure right here that we're talking about, but they can set up an eCDN provider that can minimize that. These eCDN providers will provide either via the browser in a plugin list situation or via an agent on the PCs that you push out using SCCM and other mechanisms for pushing things out to your laptops or towers, whatever the case might be. You can push out to Mac and PC these agents, and what they do is essentially, it isn't this, but it's kind of like BitTorrent or peer-to-peer. I go and I hit that live stream. I'm the first person in my local area network segment. I've hit that video stream. It brings it to my computer. It buffers it. And as other people go to hit, they piggyback off me. They in turn are buffering. So it provides, and it's intelligent enough to understand the connection. So if I drop, it just kicks over to the next person and so on and so forth. But it's seamless for end users. We use this internally. To set it up is simple, though, from an administrative standpoint. You select Enable a third-party eCDN. So that means you've worked with one of our 3 providers, Hive, Collective, or Ramp. They all have try before you buy. They'll even let you go and test it. They have silent testing, so you can test this on your network, etc. So, you know, you can, like I said, try before you buy, but you can still set this up. Once I select that, it says select a provider. There's only 3 there. Those are our 3 approved partners that we work with, Hive, Collective, or Ramp. Then you set up your customer ID. You give a URL. They all have, and Sam's going to show this, very rich reporting features. You set up that report URL, and if it gives you any configuration settings you need to configure, you paste that right in here. That's it. When you're done, you click Save. Then you can click Verify Setup. It'll go ahead. It'll double check to make sure it's all working, and then you're rocking and rolling. From a stream admin perspective, there's one other place to set this, and that's in the Teams console. But this will work across the board for stream. But for Teams, there's one little extra additive piece we want to do. So again, we set up live events. This means everybody can post. If I don't want everybody, I turn this on, and then I add my people or groups to limit who can schedule a live event and deliver that. And then under eCDN, we go ahead and enable that third-party solution for Hive, Collective, or Ramp. We'll have links to all 3 at the end. And then again, put in our customer ID, analytics, URL, and then the config settings they give us. And then from a stream perspective, we're done. There's still one last place we need to go to, and that's over here. Do I need to pause for questions, or can I keep rolling on?
I think you should keep rolling on. We do have questions, but we'll leave them to the end of yours.
Good. All right. So we can see here we're loading the admin for Microsoft Teams from the Admin Center. And this is where we do all things admin. First thing I want to call out is this, meetings. So you will note they have meeting settings, meeting policies. These have nothing to do with live events. So I've had people say, you know, hey, we went in and we set up maximum bit rate and all that. In this part, it does not help you. It has nothing to do with live events. Remember, live events is based on stream, not the Teams real-time meetings. So those settings here do not affect that. What we do have is 2 places, live event policies and live event settings. The first of which is live event policy. So you can see here, we have a global org-wide setting. I could set up different settings for different groups. What this section, though, gives me is this. It allows me to say, hey, this group will, in this one I'm saying everyone, allow scheduling. So remember that other part we saw on stream? If this is turned on, if I have not turned on that other part and then ratcheted down who can set up a live event, if I haven't done that, Everybody can, because this is on. That means my whole org can schedule a live event. Also allow transcription for attendees, right? That's another piece so that we can have like that real-time captioning going on. Then I have who can join and who can record. The first of which, the default is everyone. That means Sam will walk you through the setup where we have options around that, but you can see here, everyone means I can deliver them internally and externally to anonymous. I could say everyone in the organization. That means only my org can attend these. I can only set these up for my people who are a part of, in my case, Microsoft.com. In your case, like we had Columbia, it'd be Columbia.com. So I can do that. Or maybe we're testing and we're limiting it. We could say just specific users and groups and apply that. But we're going to go ahead and leave it for everyone. Next, who can record an event? It's very similar. Always record means at the end of this, it's recorded, right? We can always do that and have it done. We can say never record so that the live is live, and that's it. There is nothing on demand that people can watch. Or you can make it so only the organizer can choose to access and can record and have that. And that's it. That's under live events policies, right? So we can have one or more policies for the global group or for subgroups that we can set up here. The other is around live event settings. And this, again, two things. Number one, support URL. This is a general one. It's just a generic, right? If you set up, maybe you take documentation for your users for support and you post it in your SharePoint intranet. You could give the URL here for all the FAQs for your organization, how you use it, support questions, have all that there for them, even with embedded videos from Stream. So if somebody's having an issue, they can click and then they can get the help they need for on demand. Then finally, notice it has this here. This is so the Teams client will understand that same ECDN. Some of you right now are remote, but you joined not via the web, via your Microsoft Teams client. If you did that within your own org, you want to make sure the Teams client can understand that, just like it would via the web in Yammer or in Stream Native. So we'd come in, we'd select it, we'd select our provider, I'll select Hive, then we give the license key and then the ADI template URL here, and then we're done. And they provide you that info. So we can quickly set that up. So now my Teams client can take advantage of that same ECDN as the browser would. That's it on administration, right? That's all we have today. There's much more in the Stream for Stream itself for on-demand videos, but for live, this is what we're providing today, and I hope you found that helpful. Just two things. Number one, go through your settings. Make sure it really is configured the way you want. Number two, request help. I'll have the link. You can request assistance for testing. Number three, if you're an enterprise, you probably need an ECDN. I recommend that for every customer I have. It can make all the difference in the quality of your transmission. So with that, I'll open it up and then we'll take a few questions and then we can switch over.
Hey, Mike, this is from Anonymous. Can we control the stream's resolution or does it have to be on ABR?
That's a great question. So you actually can when you're using an external encoder. So with Teams itself, it defaults pushing out a 1080. P stream, but if you downgrade your video, I forget if Teams does this. I know external encoders can. So if you use an external encoder for delivering a live event, there you can set the bit rate. And actually what'll happen is, let's say instead of it being 1080p, you say, hey, I'm going to stream up at 720 or 640 by 480 at 512 or 3 something. I see all the hands going. This is great. I get to see them while we're going, and I'm all hands waving around. So at any rate, if you control that bit rate coming out of yours, then Azure Media Services will take that as the top end and then go from there for stream downgrading. But yeah, so you can meter it that way. You know, again, I would recommend, if you want the best transmission, best experience for your users, get an ECDN set up so you don't have to worry about that. Get that set up. They offer additional functionality on the back end with theirs that you can do some moderating and setting of the bit rates and all kinds of good stuff through their service. But if you want to, with an external encoder, you can control whatever the bit rate is going up that you've controlled. That'll be the starting point, and it goes down from there. We don't upscale that. Next.
Mike, this one is, does the recording start automatically, or can the recording start automatically, or is that manually done?
So that's a great question. So the second I click start, it's doing it. What happens on the back end, we use something called fragmented MPEG. It's a proprietary service. It's what we use it for the Olympics, World Cup. The biggest events on the internet have been delivered using Azure Media Services. Same service, just scaled up. And what fragmented MPEG does is, as we're going, it's actually creating 14K fragments. If you ever open the folder, for an hour-long session, you see this endless thing of 14K MPEG fragments. And it creates also a dynamic XML file on the fly that's, as those fragments are created, it's annotating it, right? And recording those fragments in the file. That gives you, I don't know if if you're in a browser, if you notice, you'll see the progress bar. You can actually skip back and forth, just like a DVR, right? Gives you DVR-like capability. At the end of this transmission, if you came back to the same URL, you could play back that fragmented MPEG stream. It would look and act just like you're seeing right now. But in the back end, Azure Media Services takes that and then takes all those fragments via that XML file, wraps it all up into a single MP4 recording that I can then load into Stream. I could upload, in our case, we're going to upload this into YouTube, do whatever you want with it. So you have a single MP4 file. But for end users, although it's fragmented MPEG on the back end, for end users, it just looks like standard internet delivery. But it does have that DVR capability. Nothing else to do. It happens automatically at transmission. Any others?
So Mike, we're thinking, since I'm going through the end user side and how to actually set it up within Teams.
You ready?
Yeah, so I don't know if, since we're coming up on the hour, we have so many different questions and a lot of awesome audience engagement. Do we want to just go through those questions and set up another live event for the end user side?
Remember, this is scheduled at 1:30. This one was scheduled for an hour and a half. So why don't we take 5 more minutes of questions and then we'll plow on.
Perfect.
So, Mike, this one comes from Sarah. Sarah's asking, is a raise hand feature coming to live events? So in addition to Q&A, you can see when people want to engage.
I'm not aware of, that's a great question. That'd be kind of cool, right? Yeah, so I'm not aware of that. Again, user voice, talk to your Microsoft team. I don't know if you're one of my customers, if you are, hound me with a note and I can ping the stream team themselves direct. But that's a great question. And actually, that would go through the Teams and not the stream if we're talking about Teams live events, right? Because it's moderated Q&A, that hand raise, that might be interesting. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not aware of it, but that would be a great thing for user voice or talk to your account team to talk to the stream team about. Next.
Will live events be supported on non-MTR systems like Poly X30 or X50 video bars?
Yeah, so here's the thing. Anything you can get a video feed from and then pump into an either natively via RTMP or pull in like via Crestron, typically Polycoms connect to Crestrons, we can set up and pull in. So a great example, Microsoft Teams room. I have a Teams room sitting over here. I can invite that as the presenter. right? And then I can go ahead and actually pull that up. Or if you have a Microsoft Surface Hub, one of those big units, you can invite that as a presenter and it can participate presenting. And everything else, it would be via then, they would join just via standard browser. But from a Polycom or other camera setups, it depends how you're pulling that in. And then as long as either we can pull it in via Teams Room, we can do that. Or if you can via that whatever hardware software combo you're using to capture the cameras, if you can push out an RTMP, you can do that. Or if you can output USB from that to this. So short answer is yes, devil's in the details.
And Mike, I know you were chatting about this a little bit before, but how much does an ECDN cost estimated?
I'm going to be blunt. I don't know. It's a per user per month, and that's active usage. So, again, and it's going to depend on, it's like everything else. It depends how big your org is, how many licenses, there's volume discounting, etc. Best thing I can tell you is we're going to supply links at the end, and you can either have your Microsoft team hook you up directly with them or take our links, contact those folks. And again, you can do try before you buy. You can try all three and ask them for pricing and a quote and talk to them. So it depends.
Great. And the last one I see is there a storage limit to the recordings from Teams Live events?
So the storage is based upon your stream overall, and the way that works is you take, and I think it's, I forget if it's gigabytes or terabytes that we start with. There's like a baseline. We'll get a link to it. It has there's a formula, but you get a base chunk, and then it's I believe 500 megabytes per user, but it's a total sum, and then you add all that up, and that gives you your total storage. You can purchase additional storage, but the total storage you get it's very similar to what we do for your storage for Office 365, but we give you another whole big chunk separate for stream. So it's based off of that. And was that it?
I think so. Yeah, that's what I see so far.
Well, let's go ahead and Sam, I am going to, you want to go ahead and share your screen and I will push you on over.
Yeah, let's do it. Tell me when you can see my screen.
Still seeing me. Let me stop sharing. There you go. You want to go ahead and try sharing now?
Yeah, let me.
We're getting Big Sam.
Okay, perfect.
Here it comes.
Okay, great.
There we go. Beautiful.
All right, so let's start this up. So I wanted to show you all, I think, are you seeing my screen okay? Okay, great. So I wanted to show you all from an end user perspective, just how the producers and on our end, how Joe and me and Mike are seeing this event right now, how we set it up from the very, very beginning, and then also how to act and what actions you can take during the event, and then at the end, what resources you have after the event. So just going to go through this step by step. Again, feel free to ask questions. Now Mike and Joe are going to be moderating and asking me questions in the background. So take you through step by step. I actually just set up a sample event, and I'm going to take you through what it looked like on my end. So here's setting up your first live event. So if you'll notice up here in the top right-hand corner, there is this new meeting. And everyone is more familiar with the scheduled meeting, the Teams meeting, but like Mike said, we want to click on live event because that will allow you to go into the event with up to 10,000 people. So setting up the live event. This is the first screen that you see when you click that you want to set up a live event. You just add in the title here. You can put the start date and the time, any details, maybe you want to add in the agenda, and then also inviting people. So there are a couple different roles, and I know Mike went through these, but there's the producers as well as the presenters. So this is an example of me adding Mike as a presenter, whereas I'm a producer. So producers, you can think of it as you're really controlling what's happening during the event. There's a lot of content that can be shown. There's a lot of presenters that can be shown. You're deciding what the audience actually sees, whereas the presenter is simply there to present their content. So this is just the main screen, and when you go down here and you click next, these are the permissions that you have the ability to set up. Now, this is really important to stop here because in terms of privacy, you want to make sure that you get these right from the very beginning. You have three options. You can either invite only specific people and specific groups if you want to really keep this event closed. You have the option to share this out org-wide, and this is the default setting. This is anyone with your domain can watch the live event. They will have access and they do have to sign in. Or you can make it public. So for example, with our HLS blog, we have a lot of webcasts that we want to record and we want to share out to the general public. And this is going to be open to anyone. So they do not have to be within your organization and there's no sign-in required. Just so you know, those are the three options there. And then once you make a decision on that, you can go down to how exactly are you going to produce your live event. So there's a lot of options here. Number one, these are the default, just so you know. This pops up as the default. It actually, one thing to take note of is that the default is that there is no option for question and answer, no option for Q&A. So make sure that if you want audience engagement and interaction like we're having on the call today, that you do check this checkbox because it will allow the audience to ask you questions and you can moderate that on the back end. And I'll show you what it looks like once we actually get into the event. Yeah, go ahead.
Just really quick, I just want to see if you can maybe share the other screen because they're seeing presenter view right now, so it's a little tough.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
We'll switch that out. Yeah, thanks for letting us know.
Sorry. Let's do this. Let's duplicate it. Okay, is this better?
Yeah, that looks great now. Much bigger. Thanks for that call out, guys. I see that coming from a few.
Then can you minimize the little video in front of it?
Yeah.
There you go. Beautiful.
So much better. Okay. So if we need to go back to those screens, let me know, but we'll keep pushing forward for now. So this is how you're producing your live event. And if you can see this whole screen, it's basically you have the options to do it straight through Teams. Or if you do have an external app or device like Mike was saying and you plan to use another tool to share content, you can do it this way as well. If you do it within Teams, you have more options. You can make the recording available to all the producers and presenters that are within the event. You can choose to make the recording available to all the attendees afterwards. This is the captioning, so this is huge for us. Microsoft has been really focused on accessibility and making sure that no matter what your background, no matter where you're coming in from, you can access this event the way that anyone else can. So you have a spoken language that you can choose, which is the primary language, but then you can also translate this into up to 6 languages. And there are 44 to choose from for this event. For example, we just chose 6 different languages and you can see it afterwards. There's also an attendee engagement report, and I'll show you what that looks like afterwards. It's really helpful to be able to see who's engaging, where are they coming in from, etc. So those are the options there. Again, one thing I want to highlight, since now it's on the bigger screen, make sure you choose Q&A if you want Q&A on your live event. The other option is through an external app or device. And again, that's just using another tool to share your content, which Mike was going over beforehand. So once you click next and you set up the event, this is what you get. So this is just my sample live event. This tells me that I can start inviting attendees. This is very, very important to note. This is your attendee link. You need to copy this to send it out to the attendees, just like for you all that are calling in today on the attendee side. You don't want to forward this event directly from your Outlook because it's going to add people and they're going to become presenters potentially on the event. So make sure that you just use this attendee link if you just want to send to people that are viewing the event only, okay? So I know we had some questions in the Q&A about, hey, what do guests see and can they be presenters? And the answer is no. If you want someone to be able to present, you have to add them as a presenter role. Can you do it after you've already created this? Yes, you can still add people in. Say I want to add in Joe for today's event like we did. We added him in, but it's nice and easy to do it from the very beginning. So this is the bottom of the screen. It just shows the date, the time, and then all the resources. And I'll go into an example of an event we had last week in Boston, and I'll show you the resources that we pulled after that event, just so you can get a sense of what you get out of the box. Great. So once I click close here, I just go back into my calendar and I can actually see this little logo in the bottom right-hand corner. That just means that it is a live event in comparison to the Teams meetings that you're used to. So when I go actually click into that event, it says join now. You'll see that there are other join options. Maybe I'm in a room and I want to add that room as a presenter because I want to broadcast directly from the room. Maybe I want to add attendees. Maybe I want to come in muted. You have all of those options here. So I'm going to click join now as a producer, as you can see up here. And this is the first screen that I see. So the thing to remember here is that the left-hand side is the queue, which means that you're just testing. You're seeing how things look. You're making sure that you have the right content that you want. It's not until you click this button, Send Live, that it goes to the right-hand side. The right-hand side, as it's labeled, is the live event. This is what all of your attendees are going to see. So it makes it nice on the producer end because you can test things out. You can be making sure that it looks good, making sure the audio is all good before you actually send it live. So this is what you see at first. The live event hasn't started. There's absolutely no content. That's when you start adding in content. So down here, and it's nice because we have a little wizard set up now where it says select the video or the content you want to send to the queue. So if I select myself, if I'm sharing my video, it's going to send it up to the queue. And if I want to share my screen, over here you'll see the share button. If I want to share my screen, then it will come up with, okay, do you want to share your desktop? Do you want to share a specific window? You have the option to do a lot of those. Right now, for example, I'm sharing my desktop. So I'm going to add this content in. And now I have both my shared screen and myself. Now this is just me going through a sample live event. You can have up to 9 different people on here, including the person that created the live event. And then you can also have one content to share. So at any time, it doesn't necessarily just have to be myself and my screen. That was just for my sample. It could be up to 10 total. So what happens is I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to click this content and it goes up into my queue. Now, it will warn you on the live event. It will say, in order for the audience to see this, you have to click Send Live. So clicking Send Live, and again, these yellow boxes around the queue and the live event, it's basically saying the event hasn't started yet. So this is just me, like for example, Joe, Mike, and I came in 30 minutes before this event even started, and we're just testing things out, setting it up. It's not until you hit this start button over here that the audience is going to see anything. So right now I'm just testing it out, seeing what I want. So I'm like, okay, I see this, but it doesn't look too good. So let me see what it'll look like. Maybe I'll put up a content around my healthcare and life sciences blog. Maybe I want my video going at the same time I'm presenting content. And you can see this little button down here. Excuse me. There you go. This little button down here, if I circle the purple button on the left, that's just one screen. So say I want to share my screen or my video. Whereas if I want to share both video and content, I can click on this button, which shares video and content. So again, live event has not started yet. And I'm going to say, this looks pretty good. I want to send it live. So when I click Send Live, this is what happens. The exact screen over here in the queue. goes to my live event. And again, excuse me, it takes you through a little wizard where it says you have to click start for this to go live to attendees. So to be clear, excuse me, when it's yellow like this, the attendees are not seeing anything. They're just seeing if they were to join the event that the event has not started yet. So once I click start, good news is it warns you. It says once you start, you can't stop. You can't stop and restart. This is good to know. We had a couple questions in the Q&A. The event can last to up to 16 hours from the start time. And attendees do watch at a 10 to 20 second delay from what you are presenting currently. Good things to note as you're testing things out on your end and doing your first live events. So I do want to start, so I'm going to say continue. Now you'll see the red pop up, right? This is live. We went live right at noon today, noon Eastern time, and this is what we saw on our end. We went live with the event and it's red. And now you'll see that this button turned into an end button. Don't click the end button unless you want everyone to be thrown out of the event immediately. Now it will warn you, it'll say, are you sure you want to end this event? But this closes out the entire event. So again, you can keep clicking different content, different videos, you can bring in speakers, you can be queuing on the left, but then only the attendees are going to see the presentation on the right under live event. So before I go into these buttons up here with the different features that you have during the event, are there any questions? Excuse me.
Nothing more live. We've been answering them as they've come in. No, I think we're good to go.
All right, awesome. So let's go into the buttons at the top here and what you have going on during the event. So first of all, there's a button around health and performance. So these refresh every 15 seconds. You can see your send bandwidth, round trip time, the devices you're using, the media you're sharing, etc. So definitely good to be monitoring from a producer side, real-time metrics there. This is the live event Q&A. So now you know the secret is out. This is what we're seeing on our end. When anything is new, it comes in here. Joe, Mike, and I can see it, and your question comes in. We can actually choose to respond to you privately, or if it's a question we think would be great for the group, which there's been a ton of those today, so thank you, then we can publish it to the entire group. If it's something that, you know, sometimes you'll be in these live events, and especially if they're public events, it might be deemed inappropriate or something that, you know, you can address on a different call, then you can choose to dismiss it as well so that no one sees it. You can also, as I said, respond privately, and then this button opens and closes the Q&A. So if you decide, actually, we need to focus on the content, you can actually close that at any time.
Question for you, too.
Yeah.
So Sam, Graham is asking, can you add more content without actually stopping sharing as a producer? Like queue it up and without actually stopping to share?
Yes, absolutely. So what you have down here is, like I was saying, up to 10 different screens down here. And you can be queuing that up on the left-hand side on the back end while the audience still sees the live event. So you can be testing those things out. And feel free to ask more clarifying questions around that if you do have more.
The one caveat I would throw out is that if we look at what's showing on the left, you know, you can definitely do the different layouts, like a single piece or both, and you can have a different video. But right now, if you then went ahead and shared a different screen, that would automatically push to the right-hand view as well.
Oh yeah, that is important to note. Thanks, Mike. Great. So this, just so you know, when you're a producer or a presenter, excuse me, you can come in and actually just publish something on your own. So for example, Mike today was like, we're going to start in 30 minutes. This is an example of me just saying, thanks for joining, have any questions. You can publish that at any time. You don't always have to be responding directly to an attendee. So the next button here is meeting notes. Now these notes, it's just one note on the back end, and it's notes that you take during the event. Maybe it's something you want to follow up on. Maybe it's a question that you didn't have the answer to. Maybe it's something you want to do for the next event that you want to make sure that you don't forget. This is just shared between, for example, on this call, Mike, Joe, and I, so the attendees aren't going to see this. The next is meeting chat. So say that there is a question and you know that you don't have the expertise, but someone else, some other presenter or producer might, then you can go into the meeting chat and you can actually chat just with each other. So this is just shared, for example, between Mike and I on this. Okay, this is what we were talking about with the people. Excuse me. So with the people, maybe you have, for example, we wanted to add Joe into this live event. You can actually invite someone directly here if you want to add them after the fact. So this is where you go in and do that. It's just a couple of people with a plus sign.
Hey,
and then,
Sam,
yeah, go ahead.
Just a quick call out. The other thing that's a great option for, let's say you have presenters who are going to be remote, and I've done this in the past where I might have a presenter from the product team at Redmond who has, fixed amount of time, and you've told them, hey, approximately 1-ish, 1:15-ish, we're going to have you present. Rather than, they may be doing other things up until that time, you can then have one of your producers at the appropriate time simply call, it'll show up as somebody there, but then they can call them and have them join so they don't have to spend their whole time. So it's not just adding new, but also, different speakers who may be appearing at different times. You can queue them up and use them that way.
Yeah, that's a great use case. Thanks, Mike. So the last one here is device settings. So this shows you which audio device you're using, which speakers you're using, the mic, the camera. And this is important to note down here. I know people had a couple of call outs for the live captions for this event. So this shows that the attendees are going to see the live captions, and this is the default setting, but I don't see the live captions on my end. Now you can turn your live captions on here. You can also put it into Auditorium Mode, which optimizes your sound, and it's like includes laughter and things like that in the room. Say that you have a whole production room set up for these types of events, then you can turn it to Auditorium Mode. So these are the device settings here, and that's really the last tab on the features you have during the event itself. Does anyone have any questions we should address here? And then I'm going to go into the resources after the event. Okay. Great. So, and last thing is these are just meeting details. This already came in the details that you set up within the meeting itself when you first made it. Just it's here if you do need to give someone, excuse me, the number or the time, etc. So we're going to end the event. So I clicked this end button, and the good news is it says end event now, and it lets you know that you can't restart the event after it has ended, which is a great feature to have because as soon as you click end live event, it's gone for everyone. So we're going to end that there. And then this is what you see on your end. The live event has ended and you're good to go. So what happens is that on the back end, all of these resources start generating for you. And if you go into the event, so for example, we had this Teams governance and compliance presentation a couple weeks ago on the 13th in Boston. And I just went into my calendar and took a screenshot of what it looks like. Casey, our colleague, set it up for us, but Mike and I were on the presentation team. And I went into the event, and you can see down here, it's live event resources. So this is what it looks like. It comes with the recording, the question and answer report, the attendee engagement report, the transcript, and then also a backup recording. and Hive Insights. So I know Mike was mentioning all of our ECDN partners, Hive, Ramp, and Collective. For Microsoft, we use Hive for this. So I'm going to show you what that looked like on our end so that you know what you get out of the box in terms of resources after the event. So I'm going to share with you a couple. First of all, I'll share you the reports. Okay. Now tell me if it's a weird view for you, but let me click on it first. There we go. Almost. Okay. All right. Can you see this now?
Coming up.
Coming up? Okay. Great. So this is the example of the Q&A report that we have from the Teams governance session. As you can see the source, if they were a moderator or attendee, what's the type. So for example, Mike made an announcement that we're going to begin shortly, but then there's a lot of questions from attendees. The identity, if they're anonymous or if they shared their identity, timestamp, the conversation ID, and then the actual content or what was said, whether it was a question or announcement or a reply there. So that's what you get out of the box on the Q&A report. And then definitely want to show you the attendee report as well. Let me pull this up here. Great. So, oh. There we go. So with the, oh, wow. Okay, let me just get out of my, I have two desktop screens. So let me just see what I can do here. Are there any questions while I'm pulling this up, Mike or Joe?
Yeah, there's one I wanted some clarification, two of them, and I can talk to both of them. But the first was asking, are you able to send video with audio live as well as static content like a PowerPoint, or do you see quality issues with video? So the short answer is everything gets wrapped up client side and sent up as a single video stream, the audio and video together. So there are no issues. If you're looking for an additional audio source, for example, and this may or may not be what they're alluding to, but we've had requests where people want to have call-ins. That can be done. It has to do with how you do the configuration of that in the hardware. And you would do something like use a Skype TX or some other mechanism. It could be a conference bridge or whatever to bring that and co-locate it with the either through hardware mixing and then pushing that out, or through co-locating with the primary microphone source, and then you can deliver. But there's no performance issues via the various pieces being mixed. The other was, I asked for clarification. I don't know if they did. I said, somebody asked, when is Auditorium Mode going to be widely available? And you'd have to explain to me a little deeper what you mean by Auditorium Mode. That sounds like something like a Cisco WebEx particular proprietary function that they're delivering and calling it that. So it's a nomenclature. If you can tell me the feature sets that you're looking at, we can talk about that, right? So we're not going to use, I know they copied our name Teams and now they have their whatever Teams after the fact. They changed the name. We're not going to do that. We're not going to call something the same. So it really is going to be the feature set. So you'd have to tell me what you're looking for. We also had any mechanism to display an event a public TV or monitor without someone clicking to join? So the short answer to that is yes. And in fact, it depends on your setup. Again, if you're using an external encoder setup, like hardware, like TriCaster or something else, you can simulcast that both to the webcast as well as through your infrastructure for delivering TV services. Like many of our orgs do have that over SDI, and then they provide that on out. That absolutely can be done. So talk to your Microsoft rep about getting deeper. If you're one of my customers, if you bring me in, I can show you how to do that. I've done that at other locations, and it absolutely can be done. And the last one, at what point do you recommend using an ECDN service? It's pretty simple. If you're going to have a bunch of users coming in and you have a local area segment that you're worried about, you're probably going to want to do it. I always recommend to all my customers at least do the try before you buy and run a silent test with that, which you can do with their try before you buy, to see how that's affecting your network traffic. Or talk to your TAM. That's the other big one. You got Premier Services. Get your TAM involved. Have them help you with testing your network just to make sure you're ready, or if you need it. And I'll shut up.
No, perfect. Thanks, Mike. I'll show you the other resources really quickly. I know we're coming up on time here. So this is the attendee report. It shows the session ID. I blocked out participants from our team's governance day, but it shows participant ID, which is their email address, and then the full name, the user agent, the timestamp, the action, so whether they joined or they left, and then also the role itself. And you'll see there's attendees, but then there's also an event team member. So that's the attendee report. And then quickly I'll show you, this is the stream. So you can see we actually have the stream for the event, and this was what was showing for the event. We were talking about teamwork in Office 365, and then I was presenting in the room over here, just like we had set up for today. And then the other thing that you get out of the box is the transcript. So this, I just pulled it up in Notepad, but you can actually see the transcript here. So those are the things you get out of the box. And then the very last is I wanted to show you the Hive insights and what that looks like. So after the event, let me pull this into my screen here. After the event, you can also see from Hive's perspective how it went. Sorry. And this is like, this is the dashboard, and like while I'm pulling it up, it's really similar to the ones that you get with both Ramp and Collective as well. But it just goes through, okay, look at your viewers, the traffic. You can select the different date and time here and apply it. Maybe you want to look at buffering. There's a lot of different summaries here. So that's it for me. Just wanted to give you an idea, if you've never done it before, of how to set up a live event, how to run the event, and what you get afterwards. A lot of times we find that it actually is not, it's very simple on the back end from a producer and presenter standpoint. It's just a matter of being familiar with it. So like Mike said, we do have this live events assistance that just came out. If you do need more hands-on before the event, rehearsing during the event, or after. So I'll turn it back over to you, Mike.
All right, so we had a lot of great questions. This is pretty lively. And I see somebody asking about, again, for the use case, they were talking about redundancy in the auditorium mode that they saw in Skype meeting broadcast. So it may, like I said, some of that, yeah, so they saw your setting to toggle for that, but again, you're on internal bits, so it's probably something that's coming. But at any rate, having said all that, we want to thank everybody for joining. We're right up at the time. Again, we will be taking the recording from this. All of our resource links, we'll be posting that up to the aka.ms/HLS-blog. That's aka.ms/HLS-blog. So that'll all be available. You can share that with your colleagues. Also, that's the place. If you have questions, let us know. You can post questions up there. We'll do follow-ups. You can also find all of us out if you go on to LinkedIn. Yeah, that's where it's at. So all of us are available. And again, if you have further questions, pull in your Microsoft account team. Folks like myself, like I do POCs. I have a couple of customers. I'm traveling on site to one tomorrow. I've got another one up in Boston that wants to tee one off. We're going to have preliminary discussions. And I've got a third large pharma that wants to do it. If they want to take me to Prague, that would be wonderful. But having said all that, we would love to help you. That's what we're here for. Teams Live Events is one of those best kept secrets that can really help you get value immediately out of the product. And, we want to help you. So engage your Microsoft team, take advantage of that service that Sam mentioned, and that's it. We do have some great ones coming up, like I said, so stay tuned, check on the blog. We'll be posting about some new upcoming events shortly, probably early next week. We'll have that up, and we want to thank everybody for joining. You've all been great. So any last questions? So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to say we're going to call it. So thank you. Have a great day. Have a great rest of your week. And from Mike, Sam, and Joe, bid you have a great day. Take care. And as always, ciao.